All right. So we're going to do another writing video. My head is gigantic. The ultimate goal is years from now to look back at these videos and go, my God, look how fat you were. Look how bulbous your head was. Look at when you were bald. Now you have this full head of gorgeous hair. Now, anyway, I'm leaving all that part in. How I find time to write. So we're gonna. I mean, the obvious one now is I'm a full time author. 15 years, I've been able to make a living out of my writing. So I have all the time in the world. As a great band Junkyard once said. But how did I get to this point? Because I didn't write 200 and something books, novels, novellas, short stories. I didn't write all of those in the last 15 years. I've been writing hundreds and hundreds of stories and books for the past almost 40 years. So where did I find the time? Well, in the beginning, I wasted a lot of time in my teens writing awful, awful stories. And I can remember there's one instance. So I don't want to go too deep into the weeds here. As a teenager, in junior high especially, I was bullied by older kids. And I kept it to myself. And I would write these, most of the kids, I didn't even know their names. I would write these stories in notebooks about basically like beating them with a baseball bat, like crazy stuff, like my revenge fantasy stuff, which I guess we probably all do that. As I got into high school, it calmed down a little bit. I got I still got picked on here and there. But it was only like a couple of kids, and I didn't even know who they were. And so I would write, and again, I would write my all these awful revenge fantasies. I remember going. There's a beach near me. I grew up in New Jersey, uh, on the shore. I grew up in a little fishing village, Belford, New Jersey, and south of that is Highlands, Atlantic Highlands. Um, the director Kevin Smith grew up in that area there. There's Sandy Hook, which is I guess it's a national park. It's a beach, and I would go and sit on the rocks with my notebook, and I would write stories. Once I got my license, I would spend one or two Saturdays afternoons up there by myself, just writing and just enjoying the weather, just enjoying the ocean and all of that. And I wasn't even near a beach where there were people. I was just near a beach. So I would find time to write then. As I got older, obviously I get into my 20s. Now I'm working. I'm working full time. The awful mistake of going into retail, which became 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week, 5 days a week, 6 days, 7 days a week. And so there was really no time. I went through two awful divorces. I was with somebody after that for 6 years, and I was miserable. And until I met my wife now, and I guess, third time's the charm. And I remember one of those exes. It was like the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. I get up, I turn on my computer, and I just start writing a story. And she crept in from the bedroom. I'm in the living room. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm writing. And she's looking at she's like, "What are you wasting your time with that for?" I said, I'm a writer. I want to write stories. And she literally said to me, I would rather you were out here looking at porn than wasting your time with that crap." And she went back to bed. And that really hurt. That really crushed me. And so I worked for a company. We did merchandising. in a big box store, and we were in charge of a specific department, and we'd have to make sure it looked nice and take notes and make sure the store was doing what they were supposed to do, and on and on. And I'll be in like three or four different stores, so each day I would be in a different location, and we had a PDA. Now, if you are old like me, you remember a PDA. It was basically the size of a Walkman. If you're also my age, you'll know what a Walkman is. Look these things up, kids. I'll just pause it real quick and look them up, and then come back. So PDA, I had specific goals like check this end cap and make sure this product is filled, and that kind of thing. That was my day. My day was basically logging into this thing and telling headquarters in Chicago what we were doing each day. And we had specific tasks were dropped into this PDA. Well, it also had a notes feature. And somebody had also figured out, hey, we can get Wi-Fi on this. So we can put you can put your email address, you can put your email in this. So I didn't even have a cell phone then. I would write stories during work. I would just be walking around with a little stylus, and I would just be tapping stories. And I wrote a lot of fantasy stories, my freehold world. I wrote a lot of fantasy stories that way at work. So I didn't have to do it when I got home. I couldn't do it when I got home because I was with somebody who was an awful person. And in a lot of interviews, I also would say, what inspires you? But I'm like, listen, I had 3 horrible relationships, and I've killed them hundreds of times in stories, not in real life. Remember that, not in real life. So I would find time to write during the day. Then I would write on my lunch break. I would write on my 15-minute break. I would sometimes I would sit in my car on the PDA, and I would do it. I would have a notebook with me, and I would just be jotting down all these wonderful, wonderful ideas that were going to make me millions of dollars as a writer. Because I knew from the time I was 12 years old, after reading Dean Koontz, I knew this is what I want to do. I wanted to be a writer. This is what I wanted to do for a living. This is the dream I wanted to live. And so it took me many, many years to get here. I was, in my 40s, early 40s, when I finally got to the point where I was like, hey, I can actually do this full time. So it was just finding those minutes. Okay. Now, when I was between these people, when I was between the first wife and the first ex-wife, second ex-wife, I was managing death metal bands in New Jersey, and so I was on tour with them, and I had a job, and I was chasing every skirt. Kids, we still say that skirt, right? So I was not writing at all. I went through like a period of about 4 or 5 years. I did not write at all in the mid-90s, at all. So when I finally got to the point, and I can remember it clearly. I had watched a movie with Deborah Winger and Billy Crystal. Forget About Paris, maybe was the name of it, something like that. He plays an NBA referee. And I watched this romantic comedy by myself one night, sitting in my house in Keyport. I remember there was a really bad thunderstorm with these giant windows in that house I was renting. And I had all the blinds all open. I'm just watching this storm, and I had like an ugly orange chair and a TV tray with a TV on top of it. My little TV. That was all the furniture I had in the living room at that point. And I remember drinking alcoholic beverages, and I'd probably gone to the chicken place a couple blocks over and got me some chicken. And I watched this movie, ate my chicken, drank my alcohol, went to bed, and at 2:00 in the morning, I woke up. I mean, just boom, sat up in bed, and I'm like, I have an idea for a story, which I hadn't written stories in years. And I sat down, I pulled out the old word processor. I was still using a word processor back then. I remember my mother had bought it for me for Christmas, maybe the year before, and I never used it. Like, I'm like, I don't want, I'm not. And I started writing a book, which will never ever see the light of day. I think I have a copy of it somewhere in a closet, called Shoe Boy, and it was a romantic comedy, which just got off. It was maybe 100 pages long, but it's you jump started back into me writing again. And then I went through. Then I got remarried, and then didn't write for several years, and then so it got to the point where once I was done with those three bad relationships, and I was able to do this full time, I would always say, "Do I need to watch this movie? Do I need to?" Do I need to be doing these things? What's my priority right now? Is it chasing women? Do I need to go out? Do I need to hang out with my friends every Friday, Saturday? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? Because I was in a dead end job, several dead end jobs. I'm working retail, and I was just like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't enjoy this. I don't like the customers. I don't like the people I work with. I don't like the corporations I worked for. The pay was awful. The hours were awful. Getting up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work because you had to put out a bunch of bleach or something. Had to do paperwork. No thanks. So I prioritized the writing, and that was around 2009 where I was like, I got to do something here. Ebooks were becoming a thing. Amazon was starting all of that, and it was the Wild West when none of us knew what we were doing. We were just throwing books up there, and it was a lot of fun. And I wrote a lot in the beginning. I mean, I had days where I was just kicking out 5, 6, 10,000 words because I was so excited to write. And I was finding the time to write because I was saying to myself, you know what? I don't need to sit and watch television. I don't need to do any of these things that I don't want to do. And my son was still in high school then, and I didn't want to take him out of his high school, but I had moved back to my parents. I was living in their dining room, and my kids were living in the bedrooms, the guest rooms, basically. And I remember every night my parents would be in the living room blasting their television, and I would be this little thin screen. I would be in the dining room, and I would be writing. And I had a computer then, and I had the computer set up, and I would be writing, and that was the focus. That was the priority, and that really kickstarted it for me. So then I was able to do this full time, and I was like, well, if I'm finding an hour a day to write with a full time job, with the kids are still young, on and on and on. If this is my job now, I could write like 10 hours a day. So if I can write 2,000 words a day, I could write 20,000 words a day. Never happened. I wrote a lot. While my son was in high school, I would drop him off at like 8 o'clock in the morning. I would go to Kokomo's Cafe in Flagler Beach, which is no longer there. Flagler Beach is still there, but Kokomo's is not. And I would write from like 8 in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I would have conversations with people, but I would work. I was doing emails. I was writing a lot. I wrote probably 15 books just sitting in that place over the course of a school year. And it was great. It was just great. And even after he got out of high school, I was still going during the summer. I was still going. Like my day was, I'm going to Kokomo's, and I would drive half an hour, and I would go sit in Kokomo's in my corner seat and, drink coffee all day and talk to everybody. And that was great. And so I find the time because the priority is the writing. The priority is this is a career. You know what? I'm doing 7 days a week now. I'm doing probably 100 hours a week sitting at this computer, but I enjoy every minute of it. Yeah, there's hard days. There's days where I don't know what I'm doing. Imposter syndrome. I mean, all of it. But I say to myself, this is what I this is what I fought all those years to do. This is what I want to do as a career. Make or break. At the end of the day, I say to myself, if I wake up one day and I say, you know what, I'm poor, I'm in bad health, I'm penniless, but I was still living the dream. You know, not everybody is going to be Stephen King. Not everybody's Dean Koontz. Not everybody's James Patterson. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody is going to be that top of the line. You're making tons and tons of money and you have fans everywhere in TV shows and movies and whatnot. It doesn't matter. Find the time to write. That's always been a goal. And so now that I have all this time, I prioritize where is my parts of the day that are writing. And yeah, I go on YouTube live. At this point, I'm going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so 5 days a week, I'm writing live for 2 hours. Now, I'm not writing for 2 hours. I'm writing here and there. I did another video about the Mondo method and how I break my day and write. I need to get back to that. But I'm just writing here and there in those 2 hours, and I'm writing like 1,000 words. I'm still getting my day in, okay. But I'm also looking at it and saying the priority is the writing, but the priority is also the social. The priority is also hanging out with other writers, answering questions, telling stupid stories, and battling the depression, all of those things. So I think it really helps, and it's prioritizes the writing and all that, because I know if I have a great idea and I wake up, I'm going to write before I go on at noon, before I go on to write for 2 hours with everybody in the chat room following along. I know there are nights, 3 nights a week, my wife is not here. My wife is at her mother's house until like 10:30 at night. So I'm not out, I'm not every night, but some of those nights I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to put the TV on. I'm going to write. I'm going to work on the career. I'm going to work on emails. I'm going to work on, I want to finish this short story. I want to send out this short story, whatever it is, because the priority still needs to be this. For a long time, I over prioritized this as the career is everything. And as my kids are older, I mean, my son just turned 30. My middle kid is 29. And my youngest is 25. That's crazy. So spending time with them is a priority. My middle kid lives in Texas with my ex. So I don't really see her, talk to her all that much. But the 2 kids that are here in Florida, I spend as much time as I can with them, and as much time with my wife. So Saturdays is the only day my wife is home. She has nothing else to do except we clean the house and we hang out and we do. So Saturday the priority is not to write. Saturday the priority is family, to do stuff with my wife. So I got to prioritize the rest of the week. Sunday, I know she's gone from like 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So I have the whole day to write. I hang out with 2 and 3 other authors every Sunday morning. We go live on StreamYard, and just not live, but just in our group. And we talk for an hour and then we write for an hour or 2. It's great. Once a month, author Amanda Ward comes over in the morning and we write for 3 hours or so, and then we go grab some lunch. So I'm prioritizing the writing on those days. I know coming up on Sunday morning, 9 a.m., I got to be coffee in me already, and we got to start writing. And Monday through Friday, you got to start writing. So that's kind of where I am. There's nothing as important for me as the writing, as moving the career forward. That's the push, because it's a career that I like. my wife has a wonderful career. She loves it for the most part. You know, every job has some bad days. Even this has some bad days. But so she's not miserable. I'm not miserable. We do well. She does phenomenal. I do all right. So that's it. That's how I find time to write. Is really I just do it. And people who are like, I'm working a full-time job and I got 3 kids and I got an awful ex and blah blah blah. You know what? I found time. I found time for 20 years of that garbage. So you can find time to do it. And again, that's Armand's opinion. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching all of my writing videos. Every Wednesday and every Sunday, I do one of these videos, and then we're going to do some occasional Friday ones as well. I'm always looking for new ideas. So give me some more ideas about writing. I have a big list to knock through, but I want more. I need more ideas when it comes to writing. If you want to hear my opinion on stuff. So thank you for hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for watching all the videos, trying to build this up, this YouTube channel. So far, so good.